welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in as we approach a very difficult conversation right now, but one that we really do need to highlight. I think lockdown has placed sometimes unbearable pressure on many aspects of our lives, which can unfortunately lead in some cases to people abusing substances just to cope. And this more than often just adds fuel to the fire, resulting in addiction and patterns of abuse. So today we're asking, are you struggling with addiction in your relationship? This morning we're joined in studio by therapist, speaker and trainer and friend Asha Dullabh to help us discuss this very difficult topic but necessary conversation. Asha, thank you so much for joining us. Maybe the first place to start, because I think in relationship we often get stuck in patterns and we don't even see that there's a real problem until it's too late. When do we, or can we identify that substance abuse has reared its head now and it's becoming an issue? When does it move out of that, okay, just having a drink, to this is now becoming a problem within our relationship?
Well, there are various aspects of one's life that is affected. I mean, the individual that is addicted actually feels quite incapable in many areas of their life. You'll find that they have work disturbances, there's lots of family conflicts, violence in the home, abuse, severe health problems, just the mere sleeping and eating habits are out of balance, personality changes, memory loss, and sometimes they even find themselves in conflict with the law. And traumatic events also occur. Sometimes there's death or sometimes there's a vehicle accident. So there's a lot of layers to all the symptoms, but there's definitely an imbalance of one's entire aspect of being on the mental level, on the psychological level, and on the physical level. And
most pertinently, this you're going through as a couple, and in some instances you might both be caught in that cycle of abuse, and others as a partnership now, you've got this massive rift between you. How does this manifest in a relationship where only one person is addicted? What can happen to the other person in that dynamic?
Well, if there's one person that's addicted, usually the partner has some awareness and can reflect back to the addicted party that, there's obviously something that's not right. So usually, you'll find the one partner that is addicted will be in denial. So the other partner will actually be in a very emotionally turbulent situation. I think that there's a lot of conflict, there's feelings of resentment, there's feelings of anger, there's feelings of betrayal, a lack of trust. So it's a very emotionally turbulent position. But on the other hand, when both parties are addicted, what we have, it's a miserable dance, I would describe it as. Because what happens is that they use the substance as a way of connecting. And usually they enable each other, they are fueling each other, so it's definitely an enabling pattern of behavior. And can become quite toxic, and usually it's other circumstances such as financial problems or family-related problems that brings up the substance addiction to the forefront. But very often there's also multiple layers of mental conditions that also are being masked by the substance addiction.
Just kind of paints over it, and I would imagine right now with everything that we've been through with lockdown, with the financial implications, with how it's kind of thrown everyone a massive curveball, I would imagine this has really reared its head. When do we know then it's time to step in and intervene, and how do we go about that?
Well, if you are asking the question whether I need help, that's already an answer that you do need help. I think that you will know when you are experiencing all the negative side effects of alcohol or drug addiction, any kind of addiction. I think addiction transcends to phone addiction, gambling addiction, sex addiction. There's a lot of addictions. I think we all have the capacity to have an addictive mind, but when do we know? It's when we have a craving for the addiction, when the addiction becomes our life. Of course, the tolerance levels, the withdrawal symptoms. I think there's anxiety, there's irritability, there's mood changes. And of course, when there's that internal and external conflict, that patterns that are repetitive, and you'll see a cycle that plays out over and over and over.
Hopefully this is just lit a little light bulb above your head right now. We're going to continue this conversation online throughout the show and after we've gone off air on 3 and go live on Facebook. We'd love to hear your comments and questions. Asha's going to stick around. Are you struggling with abuse yourself, or maybe in a relationship where abuse, especially a drug addiction or any kind of addiction, has reared its head? We'd love to hear from you as well. And we know that the road to recovery just takes that first step, and it all starts somewhere. And a little bit later, Kutle and Tubiso, in fact, are standing by right now with a solution that is something we can all consider taking on right now.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Yeah, and not just in the sporting field, we look to you to involve yourselves and to shape your feel-good breakfast show every single day. So please do participate in the conversations, especially now as we tackle our relationship talk on Monday. And of course, this morning we were tackling quite a topic because lockdown has affected so many parts of our lives with the pressure it has provided. Many aspects of our lives have been changed, which can unfortunately lead to people abusing substances in order to cope. And now this more often than not adds fuel to a fire that is burning, of our problems resulting in addictions and of course patterns of abuse as well. And so today we asked you, are you struggling with addiction in your relationship? And this morning we're joined in studio by therapist and speaker and trainer Asha Dullabh to help us discuss this topic and answer some of those questions as well.
Yes, so we've also put the question out to you on our social media platforms, and we have received a number of responses, but I'll read this one out loud to you. So, it says, Susan, it's from Susan. Thank you. It is a very interesting topic. For some people, it is a problem. They do not drink it for their own convenience, but most of the time for other people. So could that be a contributing factor to, for example, developing an addiction problem, especially when you are within a relationship?
Absolutely. I think that addiction is very much a social thing. So people start using substances, either drinking or drugging, as a social thing, and then it can extend to the home environment where it becomes a problem, and then there's conflict, which there's a rising tension, there's stress, and arguments around. So then the drinking happens or the substance use happens because of the arguments, and then a vicious cycle evolves. And then there's lots of feelings of shame and guilt associated in this cycle as well. And it just repeats and repeats.
So then let's talk about how we then can effectively help a partner who is recovering from addiction or substance abuse, and how do we facilitate an environment in which, you know, a relapse is made as minimal as possible in terms of, you know, coming back again?
Well, I think in the initial stages of any addiction, very, very clear boundaries are important. I think that one needs to be very firm in what they are seeing, because usually the addict is in denial and they can't see a problem. So there needs to be, you know, we want to be, come from a place of love and support, but we need that first and foremost, the firm boundaries. Thereafter, we need to obviously be there in support with the addict, not demonizing the situation or the person, not judging, also not staying too much in the past, going back to the past and reminding the addict of their behavior, and also not looking too much ahead into the future, but staying really in the here and now with the person and being there in support and love. Almost treating it like an illness with gentleness, with nurturance, with love, because it's not only an illness of an individual, it's an illness of the whole family. Everyone gets affected, so it really needs a systems approach as well.
I mean, I have a question. So I understand you saying we need to approach it with, you know, love and care, and we need to be gentle when we're dealing with someone who's dealing with substance abuse. But then to what extent do you take that on if it affects you directly? For example, gender-based violence in South Africa, those are the contributing factors to someone acting out like that. So then for someone who's in a position who's on the receiving end, how do I think to myself, oh, wait, he's dealing with substance abuse, so let me try to help him out of that, but I'm being directly affected, my life is in danger?
Yes, that is why therapy really needs to involve the whole family, and the partner is very much involved in the therapeutic process with anyone that's addicted to any substance, just to help them with all of those emotions. I mean, there's a lot of betrayal. They feel betrayed. There's a lack of trust in the relationship. there's emotional turmoil. It's infused with emotions of anger, of conflict and despair. And with that, I mean, any family member, I mean, if there's kids, it's even more toxic to address. So it's very layered, and we need a systems therapeutic approach.
And then just lastly, coming from a professional therapeutic point of view, you said seeing this as an illness. Take me through the rationale and the understanding of how you kind of break it down in order to come to that conclusion, to help people see it as an illness and not just addiction in the normal term that we know it.
I think whether if you look at the person that is the addict, and if we look at the experiencer or the observer of the addiction, let's agree that they both are experiencing pain and suffering. And with suffering and pain, it can relate to an illness, because it's an illness that affects us on a mental level, on a physical level, and a psychological level. So an illness, because a lot of our illnesses are because of our habitual behaviors as human beings. You know, we are repetitive in our nature. Human beings are species of habit. So we don't really get in touch with our internal dialogue, what our stories are, with our bodies. So we get into this pattern of dealing with stress or anxiety in a repetitive way. But a lot of illness is actually the root of illness is fear, innate fear. If you look at worry, for example, or stress, excessive worry and stress actually causes illness, whether we're looking at illness of the mind or the body. And addiction is very much a habitual experience.
Wow, very insightful. Thank you very much, Asha, for joining us. We always do appreciate it. And of course, we've got the Social Development Substance Abuse Line, 24-hour helpline. It is on your screen right now. If you're looking at it, you might want to jot it down, save it on your phone as one of your emergency contacts in that kind of situation. And at the end of the day, like Asha said, to understand that it is something that affects the entire family, that the entire family needs to deal with it, not just the person who is the addict in the family. And at the end of the day, hopefully, you'll find a solution that works for the betterment of the entire family. But right now, let's get the whole family up and running, get them all exercising. Ryle and Jamie Lee are standing by.